Persuading people to take the actions we want can be hard. Our teams and clients are bombarded with thousands of messages every single day. But there is a way for you to get above the noise. Stories. This is the Stories with Traction podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Zaun. Join my guests and me as we unpack the power of storytelling. We'll talk about topics like leadership, sales, and marketing, all through the lens of strategic storytelling. Enjoy this episode. You're about to listen to a storytelling FAQ sprint episode with Michelle Griffin. For those of you who might not be familiar with Michelle, she coaches on authority-focused personal branding to help professionals step out and be seen as leaders in their space. Since this is an FAQ sprint, Michelle will be answering a question on branding, and I'll be answering a question on storytelling. Let's dive in. Michelle, how can I get started with building my personal brand?
Matt, that's a great question. And I actually get asked that a lot because you know what the problem is? People think about it, but they don't do it. And I get it. There's a lot of fears, overwhelm, and the process can seem overwhelming. But I can tell you, if you take the pre-work to do your research, do the foundational work that's required, you are going to feel like you probably should have done this a long time ago. But what I recommend and I advocate all the time is a foundational approach to personal branding. That means doing the necessary work before, like anything, to get out there. So that means, first of all, let's talk about your mindset. Are you someone who wants to do it? It's not just a shiny object for you. You really are truly seeing the benefit and you have expertise and a message that you want to tie to your business goals. So I say check there for sure. Some people aren't, ready. And then maybe it's something you come back. I don't recommend it, but there is, baby steps out there. Then you want to get the foundational work that I do best with my clients. And that is getting everything about you, really getting the narrative right, the strategic idea of what you're about, your perspective, your beliefs. And then at the end of the day, it's all about how are you positioned for the person you are here to solve a problem for. So I have a 7-step framework. As you know, I've been on the podcast before to tell you all about it, but having a stair-step roadmap, if you will, to get out there is really kind of how you think about it. When we go on a journey, when we go on a trip, we do our prep work to know where we want to go. And that's the same thing. So when you're doing the work to get the guardrails out there on who you are, how you want to be known, who are you here for, the problem you solve for them, why you, that's important, why you, and your core message, that really gives you that clarity, Matt, and that confidence to get out there. And it all will flow, and I can talk more about that later, but just that strategic groundwork. And I promise you, and this is what I do with my clients, Matt, when they get the answers, the aha, this is who I am. This is who I am here for. This is my standout point of view and how I'm going to take it out there. Everything changes for them, Matt, and they get out there with such fast traction. That's why I'm very much of advocate. Do the work first, and you will see the results accelerate faster.
So it sounds like people's thoughts on personal branding was similar to my thoughts when it came to exercise not too long ago. I would tell myself, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll eat better tomorrow. I'll go to the gym tomorrow, right? And then eventually tomorrow doesn't come. So I actually started exercising again 6 months ago. And I wish that I would have been doing it for years, obviously, but because I kept putting it off and putting it off. And it's amazing how many people put off personal branding. So I started my personal branding story in 2019. So it's been 5 years. I wish that I had done it a decade ago. I wish that I would have taken your advice much sooner when it came to applying what you mentioned, because talk about inbound leads, talk about closing sales, talk about building out the persona that people cater to, that they're endeared with. I think that would have been really, really good to start a long time ago. I challenge everyone listening, get your foundational approach, like Michelle said, in order and tackle the different pieces that she had mentioned. Answer those questions and start as soon as you possibly can.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Matt, speaking of personal branding and the word story, that is what you're top of mind for me. So when someone wants to really involve storytelling in their business, how long should a story be? Does it have to be this long once upon a time? Tell us exactly what that looks like.
Perfect. All right. So first, let me touch on the vocal, like us telling a story. Okay. So when it comes to us sharing a story, there's really two different rules of thumb. So I want everyone listening to think of it in this way. If you do staff meetings, meaning like you're responsible for conducting staff meetings, you have the figurative power of the microphone in your hand, even if you're mic'd or not, meaning you have a captive audience. So if your team put in their calendar 45 minutes or an hour or whatever the case may be, they know they're going to be listening to someone speaking. So you have that captive audience. When you have a captive audience, the story should be within 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, so within 1 to 2 minutes, you have time to expand out some of the details of the story. You could take people on a little bit of a journey when it comes to the storytelling piece. You really want it to tap out at 2 minutes. We really lose people's attention after that 2 minutes. When it comes to disrupting someone from what they're currently doing, the story should be 20 seconds or less. Okay, so what do I mean by disruption? Someone walks into one of their senior leaders' offices and they're buried in paperwork, and they say, "Hey, Mary, did you get that email that I sent you last Thursday?" And she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been busy. I have all these projects. I'm absolutely going to respond." There's a little bit of banter back and forth. There is a moment where a story could be shared. That's a 20-second or less story because Mary has been distracted. She wasn't counting on you coming in on the spur of the moment and disrupting what she was doing. The reason why 20 seconds is important is because it's what websites have done to our brains. I want everyone listening to think of how many websites you've been on in your life. Thousands. We typically bounce off of a website in 20 seconds or less. And this has really been pushed to the forefront when it comes to social media because it's scroll, scroll, scroll. Oh, that looks like an interesting article. Click, scan, bounce. So
Mhm.
unless someone knows they're going to be giving their attention to something, I think it's 1 to 2 minutes. If we're distracting someone, a good rule of thumb is 20 seconds. Okay, so that's the vocal piece. That's us sharing messages. When it comes to a video, it really depends on the algorithm of the social media platform that you're on, and algorithms constantly change. So I would just recommend for people, whatever social media platform you're focused on, LinkedIn's going to be different than YouTube. YouTube wants as many ads as possible, so it's a little bit longer of a story on YouTube. If it's the LinkedIn's of the world, the Instagrams of the world, they're quicker, shorter snippets. So I would just encourage people to focus on where the algorithm is at that time. You could do that off of pretty simple research.
I absolutely love that you've explained disruption, and you were so right. There was that old cliche study about the 8 seconds and the goldfish. I mean, we've got to have stories to tell to get attention, and the disruption one is brilliant. So 20 seconds. So that means we really have to get that story break and start learning how to hone our message. Matt, that's important. So now it's like 2 minutes, 20 seconds. You've just anchored that in my brain. So well put.
And with the 20 seconds, if people ask questions and they want more, clearly we could dive into more of those details. I mean, people still listen to 3-hour podcasts and they
Yeah.
and they binge watch Netflix. So the attention, is it a problem culturally? Perhaps. I do think people's attention spans are going down, but when something's really engaging and they want more information, people are willing to spend time listening to it. So I think that's really important for people to recognize.
Do you find that when people say, let me tell you a story, is that a good way to do it? Because I feel like when people say that, we automatically listen. I used to do that with my kids all the time, and they would say, or is that something that's kind of overused and it's just a trick now that people get used to and not pay attention?
I highly recommend, especially in a business capacity, not using that verbiage as a preface.
Okay.
Typically in business, people roll their eyes. Oh, not another story. If you dive right into an engaging story, people are going to be captivated. I think when it comes to a family situation, so like there were individuals in my family that were phenomenal storytellers. So clearly when they said, "Hey, I have a story I have to share that happened 3 months ago," my ears would perk up. But in a business capacity, especially if it is at a staff meeting, or
Yes.
especially if it's part of the sales process, someone saying, well, let me tell you a story. That's not a really good preface to start with. It's just dive right in the story, captivate them right out of the gate, and then add closure to the story, because these stories are quicker. They're not Hollywood type stories. They're not hours to tell the story. They're very quick. They get to the point as quick as possible. So before they even know it, the story's over and you had their attention, you proved the point. So I think that's a really good rule of thumb.
Oh, that's so great. Again, being strategic with your storytelling. Well put.
You just listened to the latest FAQ Sprint episode with Michelle Griffin. If you have a question for Michelle or me, please email me at matt@mattzaun.com with the subject line FAQ episode.